How's it going, everyone? Welcome to this week's Q&A. So like any other week, if you want a chance to win your questions being answered, make sure you drop a comment down below. And if I haven't answered your question and it's been a while, just make sure you drop a comment once again with that question. If it was recent, it could be that it's in my queue and I'm getting ready to feature it in one of these future videos just like this one. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started with the first question of the week. And it is, with all the issues going on with the Honda and Acura product, am I still a believer in the product? Am I still recommending them? And obviously that is a hard question to answer, but me being as a technician on the Honda side of things, and I work on plenty of Acuras myself, yes, I am still a believer in my own professional opinion and my own consumer opinion as well. Now, everything on all these manufacturers have some issues. Obviously, I report on a lot of those issues on Hondas and Acuras because that is what I work on. Some of these manufacturers have big issues going on as well that are often swept under the rug, and there's not somebody like myself for that manufacturer out there, kind of explaining and talking about some of these issues. And some of these issues don't make it to the mass media. Like, for instance, not to, harp on the topic, but the head gasket 1.5T issue, there is plenty of cars being affected by this and obviously not being talked about by the mass media. So obviously there's other manufacturers with similar issues as well, probably not being talked about. Now, I follow plenty of guys with, working on Chevy, Ford, Toyota, whatever. I try to follow everybody that I can. I like to follow people that have good content, that are smart, and that obviously are not really rookies to the brand and have been with them for a while, because they typically know the ins and out of them better than like the average guy out there. So I like to follow those accounts just to be informed on what's happening kind of with everything, and see if it's, just a Honda and Acura thing or other manufacturers as well. And you'd be surprised what some of these guys post is absolutely crazy. And, it is what it is. Now, if you're going to buy one of these vehicles, I don't care what brand it is, Honda, Acura, BMW, Audi, Chevy, Mercedes, Nissan, please do yourself a favor and get the OEM extended warranty if you're planning on keeping this vehicle. If you're leasing it, obviously not something you're going to invest into, but if you're keeping it long term, doesn't matter the brand, I promise you it's worth the money. Even if you don't use it, just the peace of mind alone is worth it, in my professional opinion. So would I still buy current Hondas and Acuras? Absolutely. I got a 21 TLX and I have a 19 Pilot. Now, I don't plan on upgrading those vehicles anytime soon, but if the right situation came about, I would sure love to get into a Civic Type R. If a red one rolled through my dealer, I'd probably hop on it without a doubt. And if maybe the right deal came around for something else and I wanted to just replace my Pilot, I would absolutely go ahead and do it. Now, it's easy for me to say, obviously, because I work for the brand and now I could get stuff done quickly. Now, some stuff is still on back order, and that's frustrating, and that can still happen to me. I've been waiting on the windshield for my car for nearly a year now. So every time I go to get an update, the latest update is April 22nd. It's going to be here. Now, the latest update before that was like March 3rd. Wasn't here. So yes, it's frustrating. I've been dealing with the cracked windshield for a year now. Now, I don't want to do aftermarket. I want to do OEM Honda. But yes, it's frustrating. It still happens to me. It affects me. But, windshields crack all the time. It is what it is. I believe it was the people at my job, the landscapers, that cracked it. I can't prove it, but it was there, went to get in the car and wasn't there before. So, stuff happens. But yes, I'm still a believer. I would still buy, no problems. Obviously, some of you people are feeling different, and I could understand that. But professionally and personally, I would still buy the product. So hopefully that answers the question for you. Okay, so the next question is, what are my thoughts on the investigation on the auto stop for the Hondas and Acuras being investigated? So previously there was a bulletin for an array of parts to be replaced. So we start off with the software update. If that didn't fix it, then we had to do relays, check the battery terminals, the grounds, test the battery thoroughly, a valve adjustment and a starter, which is ridiculous because it is an absurd amount of work for what they pay, but that's not your issue. Obviously, that is my issue working on the other thing. Now, I have one of those vehicles. I have a 2019 Pilot, and we did have a kind of the symptom that was, but it ended up being, and it is in most cases, the battery was just weak. Now the battery was only 3 years old, so I got it warranted because it previously had happened the same thing. So we went ahead and replaced that. So it was no big deals. And most of the times, from what I see, it's usually a battery that is either weak or just on the way to a failing. It happened to me personally when I was test driving a vehicle for trying to aim the cameras, the dynamic aiming, which requires a test drive. So after everything was set, I approached a light and the car shut off. When I went to go start, it had a very, very weak crank. And immediately, me and my coworker, we looked at each other like, oh boy, here we go. But luckily, it had just enough juice to go ahead and start the car. So trust me, I understand, especially if you have your family in this vehicle. And typically it happens at the absolute worst situation, at a stop sign or in the middle of an intersection, which is even worse. So yes, very frustrating. I am happy that they're investigating it. I think that honestly, they just need to adjust and tweak a little bit when the battery's a little bit on a weaker side, that it just disables the system. I personally think it shouldn't be in any vehicle at all. Both my vehicles, again, do have this system. But first thing I do is I disable it when I get into them because I just don't like the auto stop back on, stop back on. And it does take a toll on your starter. So that's just the way it is. So 2.2 million vehicles being investigated. So the vehicles affected are 16 to 19 pilots, 15 to 20 TLX, 16 to 20 MDX, 19 to 22 Passport, and 20 to 23 Ridgeline. So if you have one of these vehicles, they are being investigated, which I'm happy. Hopefully it's just some sort of software update where it makes it less prone to going into the stop position where it has to restart. And whatever miles per gallon or EPA benefits they think it has, it's not enough, in my opinion, to outweigh the potential risk that you have of being stranded out there in the middle of an intersection. Obviously they can't just disable it at this point, but going forward, hopefully something that they could probably eliminate. If wanted to be, doesn't seem like it's going to be the situation because they're implementing it more and more and more vehicles. So it is being investigated. So if you have one of those affected vehicles, even if you have a vehicle that's not affected by it, but you feel like this has happened to you, please report it to your local dealer when it does happen to you, if and when it does happen. So Honda could potentially look into those additional vehicles as well, if any are affected. So hopefully that answers the question for you. So the next question is JIS versus Phillips number 2. So Phillips are rated in different number sizes. So sorry, on number 1, and typically the one we use is a number 2. And we also use number 3 for like brake rotor set screws and stuff like that. So number 2 and JIS look very, very similar, although they are not. So the way to identify a JIS screw is on the start part of the head. There's usually a little dot there, and that's how you know it's a JIS and not a Phillips. And they are different. If you've ever changed a rotor on an old vehicle, old Honda vehicle with a distributor type system, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because a Phillips will round out the head 9 out of 10 times. So very important that you use the right tools here when needed. If you see what it looks like a Phillips, but I'll try to have an image somewhere, and it has a little dot on it and it's tight, I promise you, chances are you're probably going to go ahead and round that out, and then usually you can cause yourself more headaches. So if you see something like that, get the right tools. There's plenty of JIS screwdrivers out there for that situation. And you just need one. You don't need 10 of them. Just get one for whatever situation you may need be in. And like that, you don't cause yourself any extra headaches. Again, very simple, very easy to identify. And although it looks very similar to a Phillips, it is not. So hopefully that answers this question for you. All right, so this next question is a second generation TLX. Has there been some issues going on with the active damper system? So initially, one of you guys brought out a question to me, and I wasn't even aware of this. So sometimes this is good. You guys communicate with me. Sometimes, guys are more on the forums, or it happened to you and I haven't seen it personally. So I contacted one of my favorite techs to talk to. He's actually up in Canada, and he has a lot of intel, which is great. And as far as I know, on the second generation TLX, so anything with the active damper system, it is being investigated that there is some sort of corrosion forming on the stroke sensor. So not on actual dampers. So the dampers on these cars have a little connector and they're pretty sealed. So nothing going on there, it seems like, from what Honda is investigating. So the issue is actually on the stroke sensor. So if you look at one of these vehicles with anything that has an active damper, you're going to see on the control arms a little lever there attached to a sensor. So it seems that the water is getting in there and causing some sort of issue. So that is being investigated. Now, I don't know if it's just for the TLX. That's what I'm being told. Sometimes when an issue happens to a particular car, it could be extended to other models as well, maybe even on the Honda side. So we'll have to see how it's being played out. So if you get some sort of message on your dashboard, going on with the active damper system, chances are maybe that's something that's going on with you, and you want to go ahead and take it to your local Honda or Acura dealer so they could go ahead and do whatever investigating needs to be done. So again, the issue is on the sensor for the stroke, so not on the actual damper, even though that's what seems to be coding or displaying on the dashboard at least. So hopefully it answers this question for you. All right, and last but not least, question of the week. And once again, if you want a chance to win your questions being answered, make sure you drop a comment down below. So the comment is, or the question is, excuse me, I hear splashing or sloshing of water going on when closing my door. So I have seen a recent trend of this, specifically on the 11th generation Honda Civics. It can happen to any car. I've seen it on many different models before, but specifically seems to be happening a lot on the 11th generation Civics for whatever reason. So what's happening is water naturally goes down into the door. It goes past the window. That is not a waterproof seal there. So it is normal for water to go down in there and drain out the holes. So I'm going to have a small video here of something I just found this weekend, and again, one of many, but since somebody just asked this, I went ahead and took a video of one I just had on Saturday, and you can see the amount of water that comes out. Oh my, there it is. All right, we gotta clean these drains, people. Look at that. That's a lot of water. So as you can see there, if you look at the bottom of the door and you pull the seal back, there is two small drains on the front and the back side of the door that are supposed to let the water naturally drain out. So what happens is stuff forms in there, builds up over time, dried up leaves or whatever, they get gunked up in there, and then the water can't drain properly. And every time you accelerate, decelerate, or open and close the door, you're going to hear some water sloshing around. So all you have to do every time maybe you wash your car, good idea to just lift up the seal, take a rag to it, and just wipe everything down. And also check, make sure there's nothing obstructing those, drain holes. If there's something there, try to take a pick or, anything there, coat hanger, just to, relieve that pressure and let that water drain naturally as it should. After that, you should be good to go. Again, every time you wash your car, if you remember, once a month, every 6 months, whatever, get into a routine of just checking those seals. Again, this is happening a lot on the 11th generation Civics for whatever reason, but just a little trend here that I did notice. So hopefully that answers the question for you, and I'll catch everyone on the next one.